falling asleep with your head in the wrong position is a pain in the neck. You deserve Tausi Comfort for head, neck, and back support. Go to tausibrands.com and get your comfort on.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys, Corner Crew? It's Christina and Cindy with Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner, and we are on our third episode of Engines Off.
Yes, Rolling with Ruby, Engines Off.
That's right.
Let's talk.
I love it. So we're just going to jump right into it because we're so excited we get a lot of questions, Cindy, about people wanting to travel.
Right.
And maybe they're a family caregiver and they have a loved one that they might need adaptive equipment or some accommodations made for them when they travel. And so today I'm really excited to let you guys know that we have Heather Markel on here with us. She is a certified professional coach. She is a professional traveler.
Yes.
That's awesome. I mean, who wouldn't want to be that?
I know. And I love the fact that we are doing this because, besides caregivers wanting to travel, this is all you're seeing on social media now. Yeah. People are packing up, they're traveling full time. So we are so excited to hear about what's happening with you, Heather, and then kind of dip into how we do that adaptively, because everybody wants to travel.
Absolutely. I love it. So welcome, Heather. Welcome.
Great to be here.
We're so glad to have you here. So why don't we start off? Why don't you just give us the background? Because I think your bio, when you sent it to us, I was just fascinated by it because I think so many people would just love to be able to do what you did. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent over 25 years in corporate America, sales, marketing, customer service. That was following this wonderful experience I had when I was a teenager. I was 16 when I went to live with a host family in Normandy, France, where I went with high school level French. And after a month with them, I came back completely fluent in French.
Wow.
and also loving cows because are a farm family, so that's a whole other story. but it was my first experience with cultural immersion, and I loved it so much. And it was I thought I would somehow this would come into my career. It kind of did early on in my career, but then I just detoured and I ended up 25 years later, like, what have I done with my life? And feeling like I'm just completely not aligned with the life that I'm living, with the work that I'm doing. And I literally felt like my body was rotting away at a desk waiting for retirement.
Right.
Yeah. And the silver lining of retirement was just really far away. And I couldn't, I couldn't bear the thought of almost 20 more years of this. And also, of course, afraid, like, will I ruin my retirement? Will I, how am I going to afford this? All these questions. But eventually, unfortunately, through pain, I found the courage to take that leap of faith and jump into what I thought was a 6-month career break to travel the world. And oops, I'm in year 7 of traveling full time because I've been able to wrap work around the travel, which when I started in 2018, I think people looked at me like a complete freak. And now, it's a trend.
Right. So Heather, tell me this, can you be a little bit more specific? Because I think your story, a lot of people can relate to that. I know I certainly can.
Right.
Can you be more specific about your job that made you feel unfulfilled to the point where you decided that I'm going to take that 6-month break, which turned into 7 years?
So, it was funny because for most of my career, not all, I actually liked my bosses. When I quit, I liked all my colleagues. Like I had a lot of vacation time. Like I had but it felt like I can do more. I have more to offer, but I can't do it here.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I mean, maybe looking back on it, I think the problem was I didn't know where I wanted to go, and I didn't see a path for myself there. So I did ask for promotions all the time, and I was kind of vocal about being able to do more. It just never seemed to happen. So I realized I was just in this loop of, it was like a 2-year loop where I would, start with a new boss, feel like I'm in a playground where the new kind of department head moved all the pieces around and we had to figure our way around. And when I asked for the promotion, the new boss said, well, prove yourself and then we'll talk. And at the 2-year mark, I'd finally proven myself and we were going to have that talk.
Right.
When we had a reorg.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And I just realized this loop was never going to end. And I didn't want to stay in it anymore. It was time to go.
Can you remember that specific moment when you were like, that's it?
Actually, yes. And it was because of a pain in my chest, which I had a pain in my neck years before that I didn't do anything about. I kept hemming and hawing, and that turned into 2 herniated discs.
Oh, wow.
So when that pain in my chest came, I realized this is emotional pain that's shouting out at me to take some action. And I'm not going to turn this pain into something worse. And that was the moment. And it was like January of 2017. And I said, this is it. This is the year I'm doing it.
Right.
That is amazing.
That is amazing. Interesting, because this has always interested me, and watching everybody, you see a lot of the social medias and people are picking up and doing that. As a coach, and I don't know, so I'm just asking the question, as a coach, do you coach people kind of through the process of how you change from having that full-time income and you've got the security of the income and you take that leap and then you change into the travel, but yet you still have to have some type of income? Is that included in the type of coaching that you do as far as if somebody wants to go full-time travel? It is. And really there are many different kinds of full-time travelers. So one is the one that you mentioned, like me, who's either letting go of that reliable income or it was let go for them. Right. But, we're seeing with the advent of and popularity of remote work that people, you don't actually have to let go of your job. But the thing is, whoever you are, learning how to afford how to do this isn't straightforward, and it's different for every person. Right. And I find there's a lot of information, like anything, out there on Facebook, on Google, but implementing it and customizing it to you is a lot more difficult. And that's where I come in to help do that. Right.
Man.
Absolutely.
So real quick now, well, we got everybody's attention because now you've probably just piqued everybody to go, okay, I'm getting ready to quit my job.
Yes, do it.
Right now. Right. So just real quick, tell us how people can get a hold of you right now. We'll come back around at the end of the podcast.
Sure. Well, my website, you can get me at travellifestylecoach.com, which forwards to heatherbegins.com. That's probably the easiest way to find me and go from there.
Okay. That's awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Okay.
Christina and I do some traveling, not a lot, nothing compared to you. There's, we have kind of that wish list and kind of that, that view that we're looking out at. But when we do travel, we like to kind of look around and assess where we're traveling for accessibility or for, is this going to be senior friendly? Even if somebody has a little bit of a need, sometimes that can limit them from traveling, even if it's to a hotel or somewhere like that. If they know that most of the time they're not going to be able to get off the toilet because the toilet's going to be too low, that's going to put a hold on their travel. Yeah. So that's kind of what we look at when we travel. And I know
we've actually got like a whole playlist of videos where we've gone around, from hotel to hotel within the country, so if anybody's interested in finding out, most of the hotels we stay, and we just look at standard rooms and we check them for senior friendliness. So on our YouTube channel, you can find those. Yeah, but we know you've kind of been all over, and not that this is necessarily your realm, but as far as travel, for you,
And is it difficult? Do you find some things easier than others? And thinking about somebody that may have even the smallest limits.
Yeah.
What do you think about travel in general for them?
What is your
like
advice?
your reaction?
Yeah. I mean, the honest truth is I found it different in every country.
Okay.
And I think some places are much better adapted for a senior population than others. I have to wonder too, now that you're making me think about this, if people age differently in different places, like New Zealand.
Right.
I mean, I was seeing, there was a 90-year-old I knew who was bicycling around all the time, an 80-year-old that I was staying in a cottage with a porch that was at least 5 to 10 feet from the ground, and the guy jumped off my porch onto the ground and landed it. And I'm like, I wouldn't even do that. And he said, maybe when you're 80, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
So I think and of course in New Zealand culture is a lot of outdoors stuff. So I feel like if the population is aging in a more healthy way,
right,
maybe they don't need as much of that. But so what I've seen is going around at times. I don't always stay in hotels, but I do look at hotels, and I've done some site visits, and I've, especially I was in Cape Town and South Africa, and I learned that most properties that I looked at, and these are, the big names as well as boutique hotels, have like one room that is made for someone who's handicapped, one or two maybe. And they are called handicapped rooms, right? They're not called, senior rooms.
Yeah, that's good to know the language of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think in a way, now that I'm saying that out loud, I feel like that should be shifted, because I think there's a large difference between handicap and senior.
Yeah, or even accessibility.
Yeah,
even
because
the word
everybody's
accessibility.
everybody's abilities. There's a broad spectrum, and But that's very interesting that you bring that up, because I know that information, but I didn't really think about it. But the different health statuses of different countries would certainly play a part in, are they accessible or are they not, to what we would typically consider accessible here in the United States.
Absolutely.
And we know in hotels, they have to have a certain percentage of rooms, per the total rooms, for accessibility. That's very interesting.
So here's Heather, when we go and we check the rooms for senior friendliness. We also get a lot of people that watch the videos because, maybe they're a family caregiver and they're traveling with a loved one that maybe is living with a disability. So, and maybe the accessibility rooms are all taken, so they're going to have to, work with a standard room. So we find that those videos are helpful for that. But what we do, our criteria that we look at, and I want to get your take on it, see if there's anything we're missing. So when we go and we check a standard room for access or for senior friendliness, we look at the bed height. We look at the carpeting or the flooring as far as condition and, like carpet or tile. We look at the pathways between the beds, and to get down to the bathroom. We look in the bathroom for toilet height. We look for the tub for grab bars, right, around the toilet and around in the bathtub, in the shower. We look for accessibility just to getting into the room. Sometimes those hotel rooms are super, super heavy.
The doors to those.
Yeah. And sometimes depending on the hotel, we will even look at the elevator when we're first going up, because if you're traveling with somebody that's has a mobility device, some of those hotel, that we've been in, the hotel elevators are super tiny.
I think we're giving them a look at what we spend on hotels sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah.
The elevators are this tiny.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Are we missing something? What would you advise that maybe we look at?
There are a couple things that come to mind, just because I've traveled with my mom and had this. One is, you mentioned a bathtub. Is it a big step to get into the bathtub? Like, my mom couldn't do that. The other thing that has been a real pain, especially internationally, is these lovely, lovely hotels or boutique hotels that feel they need to be creative and make these really funky light switches. So it's not just a switch. It's like a weird way to turn the lights on, or the way to open the door is not straightforward.
Right.
Those are things that I know, like for my mom, she couldn't handle it, and she gets really frustrated, and it really cuts into her enjoyment because she can't figure out how to turn the lights on, or when she goes to bed, how to turn them off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. That's a great way, a great thing to look at. So you are a family caregiver too. So you give care to your mom, and then obviously you've traveled with her as well.
Yeah.
We've had a question that was talking about not only the hotel or the VRBO that you're staying in. What about the venue? If you're going to an event, have you run across, what are your thoughts about accessibility to the venues that you had to take your mom to, or that you took your mom to?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we did was, gosh. So first off, starting with the airport, right? We get the wheelchair assist. In Scotland, it was unbelievable. They had a hydraulic lift for my mom. So we got to the boarding area, and she got put in this, they said it was $1 million device. I have it on my YouTube channel. So they in the wheelchair, they put her in this device, and then the little ramp lifts up, puts her in the, in there. And then we drive in our separate little hydraulic unit. Right. And we were left right into practically the cockpit when we got into the plane.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. Which, if you don't mind me asking, then was your mom in a wheelchair?
When we traveled, no. I mean, she was for the, to get through the airport, because she can't, but now she uses a walker. She wasn't using a walker when we were doing these trips, but yeah.
Gotcha. Because always one of the biggest complaints, and I totally understand that, is our viewers that may be in a power chair, and that power chair does not get to stay with them when they're inside the plane. They have to be moved to a seat, and that power chair usually goes under in the cargo, and that is their livelihood. That is their lifeline to mobility, and that's something that really has got to change at some point. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
But
so that's a great point as far as the airport. I mean, Cindy, I don't know if you mind sharing, but we went on a family vacation with your aging parents, and your mom in particular,
and just trying to get the wheelchairs coordinated, and then the people that you're not supposed to push their chairs, but if you have your own chair, you can push your chair, and waiting for somebody. And it was all, they were very nice, and they were very helpful, but the stress of knowing, is that chair going to be there when she gets off the plane? Because there's not very many steps that she can take. Is it going to be there? We got her off on one side, I think in Cancun, and had to lean her up against the wall until the chair came. So it's just, it's amazing the stress that you can go in this. That's just very minimal for me. And I can't even imagine the people that are actually having to use the chairs and things. So
talk to us a little bit, Heather, about the difference, because when we were talking ahead of time, you were talking about how you don't stay in hotels, you stay in VRBOs. And maybe talk a little bit about the difference between what somebody that's traveling, maybe a family caregiver traveling with a loved one that has mobility issues or accessibility issues, what the difference, or what could they do to prepare themselves ahead of time versus going just to a hotel versus the VRBO.
So, and actually it's not just I stay in hotels, Airbnbs, hostels. Like when I'm traveling on my own, I might even do pet sitting. So
awesome.
There's a whole range of places that I'm staying.
Yeah.
So, when I traveled with my mom, we did stay in a hotel. The difference between a hotel and, say, a VRBO or an Airbnb is you have a lot more flexibility to look for something. It's like a home that you're renting. So you'll have a kitchen, you can do your own cooking. You are limited typically if I'm renting your place that you have available, if it's set up for mobility, great. If it's not, then I probably can't use it. And in a way, so it's a very, even now I've been looking at a trip with my mom now, and she needs more help. And
Right.
and in America, actually, I'll tell you one thing that's really frustrating is, she works with aides. So if we travel somewhere else and she needs an aide for like the morning or the evening, that's really difficult to find. Like it doesn't seem like hotels provide that service.
Right.
Care.com, like maybe, but I don't know if it's reliable.
Right.
So it's very, very challenging.
Yeah.
That is an excellent point.
Yeah.
When we traveled in Europe, we did use a travel agent for some of it, and it was really helpful to have someone else who, like in Scotland particularly, she knew all of the, we told her our requirements, and she was able to find places for us to stay that, had to have an elevator. Think about also, a lot of places in Europe have staircases leading up to the beautiful property, but you need to have a ramp or a flat plate, like that's something I look for too, is the entrance to the hotel. Is it walkable on a flat surface? Is there, is somebody going to easily trip over? Can you get the wheelchair even in the entrance? That can be a big thing in Europe. And I know that, I think Janice was asking about like countries that are, where do you go? And it really varies. And it comes down to cities. Like I was in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I was stunned to learn that they don't, at least when I was there, they don't really cater to the elderly population. So like on the buses, they don't have like they don't, lean down. They can't come down and
lift. Yeah.
There's not a lot of elderly population in the center of Sarajevo because they don't have those facilities. Whereas, other parts of mainstream Europe, like France, England, you're going to see a lot of elderly people. But again, my experience of other places is the elderly, they might walk with a cane. But it really does seem to me like people age very differently. And also that the elderly in some cases, some elderly people are like, I got it. Like, leave me alone. I'm going to do this. And other ones are like, yep, I need help every step of the way. So it depends who you're dealing with and what you're looking for. And I think it's when you're traveling overseas, I think it comes down to whatever, if you're staying in the hotel, if you're staying in the Airbnb, VRBO, you've got to ask everyone. Like you need to know, like you said, what you look for. Have a serious list of everything that you require and go over item by item whether that will be fulfilled and make sure it is. And I would exchange emails so it's in writing, like this is what we agreed, this is what's going to be there. And probably you might have better luck in a hotel, especially because I guess it depends on the type of traveler you're with. But like with my mom, I want to know if something happens, there's a concierge, there's a somebody right downstairs that can help. So that's how I like to travel with my mom.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cindy and I also talk about when we do these, if these videos, we tell people, call ahead, like you said, call ahead and establish that communication with them. And it's something else that we have recommended. It's not, that we've put out there is wherever you're going, that destination, at least here in the States, wherever you're going, see if you can find a lending closets. So lots of times there are health equipment lending closets where they are not for profits. They usually collect gently used adaptive equipment. They refurbish it. And they lend it out to people in that area that need it. So let's say you were going to get on a cruise ship or something down in Miami, find a lending closet that's close to them and borrow the equipment. That way you don't have to buy the equipment. It's something that you might need. And then whenever you get back, then you can just return it or work with the cruise line, maybe see if they have some kind of because you can't be the first person that's wanting to travel,
That's exactly
so
right.
what are your thoughts on something like that? Have you run into anything like that? Either the facility or the hotel you're staying at, or have you seen other countries where they have lending closets as well, where you could borrow the equipment instead of take it with you?
So I haven't looked for it personally, so I can't totally comment. But I know when I've traveled with my mom, I feel like if we've needed a makeshift wheelchair of some sort, like somebody has been able to sort something out. And that's the other thing is a lot of times when I've traveled, I've found that sometimes other countries are just a lot more chill and receptive to wild requests for something. You know, they're going to find something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, but sometimes here you get well, that's not really my job. I don't really know. Right. Whereas other places, it's like, yes, you know, we'll sort something out. I'll call this person that, you know, and it might be their best friend's uncle who comes to the rescue.
Right.
But, like, you know, somebody sorts it out.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you say that, but you know, too, when we're talking about hotels, we said, we call ahead, let them know what you need, but they should be able to provide reasonable things. So if you need, you know, a frame or a bedside commode frame over the toilet to raise it up a little bit, to give you handles, they should be able to provide that. If you need a shower chair, those things are reasonable. And technically they should be able to provide those things, but definitely the communication beforehand, really knowing what to expect is always very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even something as small as like, because when we go, we also talk to the manager and we want to get a feel for what their knowledge is about, their accessibility knowledge is about their own hotel. You know, so even something as simple as maybe the bed's too high, because Lord knows these beds nowadays are way high. Are beds in other countries super high too?
Sometimes they are. I mean, and again, and I feel like in a hotel, because they're trying to be all cool, right? But when you go and stay in somebody's home, not always.
So what, I mean, so it's not, it's reasonable to ask the hotel to take the frame off. You know, and depending on, you know,
or some type of a
or a step stool,
to get you up to it.
I just don't think that's that's not unreasonable. You know, but it does have to be within reason. And most of the managers that we've talked to, like, oh yeah, we've got a shower chair, and they just have to make that call. They don't know until you say something, so they just have to make the call to maintenance or something to have that brought up to your room or whatever.
You know, in your travels, just thinking about that, do you do many cruises?
No, I have not. I actually am not in love with boats.
You hear that from people. You know, we are going to have a cruise coming up next, not this October, but next October, 2025. On Norwegian. And it's going to be for caregivers, kind of a self-care at sea. And we're interested then to take our assessment to the cruise or to the rooms on the cruise, you know, and just kind of see what's happening there. Because again, you know, some people aren't in love with boats, but some people are. So we want to make sure that, you know, everything is at least senior friendly, because a lot of times we talk about the fact that, especially with hotels and things like that here in the United States, a lot of people don't want to take what they consider those accessible rooms. They may not think, oh, I don't need that. I don't want to take that from somebody, but they still may have those little needs, like the height of the toilet or the height of the bed or something like that. So we always want to just kind of check that for senior, you know, accessibility when we go. So
I love it. I love it.
You know, Heather, do you know, and you may not, but we're gonna do some more research too. But do you have any other people that work in the travel industry that you might think would lean heavy toward knowing about the adaptive types of things that are out there as far as travel?
I actually don't. I think what you're doing is pretty unique. And I mean, I'm sure somebody out there exists, but I do have a large Facebook group. I could ask the question in there, but I think you're going to find that skill is in a travel agent who's very focused on one country, like an in-country travel guide or agent who really has the relationships with the hotels. I think those are your best resources.
I'm going to put it out to the audience. If you guys are aware of any kind of a travel agency that caters to or specializes in accessibility travel, say something in the comment section.
Because, you know, the thing is too, and Christina and I, we're going to do what we can for the senior friendliness and the accessibility to a degree, but we can never be put in, I mean, we're not in the shoes of people that actually have to go through that. And I know there's a lot of people with varying abilities out there that do some travel, you know, and I've heard from people across the board that say, we need more information. We don't have enough information to feel safe in going X, Y, and Z, but we still want to do that. We still want to go, you know, to Disney, or, you know, and I know Disney is accessible, but we still want to go to these different places. But trying to find the information so that they feel safe and secure enough to know they're going to get from A to B and be comfortable while they're there. That information is just not always readily available. Yeah. You know, it's like a treasure hunt every time you want to go somewhere. So
I'm just seeing Janice is asking some really great questions about
please feel
health
free.
issues while traveling. And she asked if I'd ever experienced one. And I think this is another one that people are afraid to some degree of travel because, you know, gosh, before I went off on my full-time travels, I thought, all my doctors are in New York. Like, I can't not go to my New York doctors. They're the best, right? Yeah. And you know, I found myself, like, more recently, I was in Malaysia last year. I had that meniscus repair surgery a couple years ago, and I think I didn't do enough physical therapy in the US. So I get there and I'm like, oh, my hip starts hurting. I'm like, what is going on? Yeah. So I need a physical therapist. I'm in Malaysia. I'm in Kuala Lumpur, where meals, it's $2 US for my food, you know, for like dinner or lunch. And I'm like, how can this country have any healthcare that's not going to make me worse? Right. And, you know, and I met a fellow traveler who who recommended a place she had gone, and I booked an appointment with a physical therapist. It was honestly the best physical therapy I've ever had. This woman, instead of the typical 30-minute appointment, it was 1 hour. She gave me exercises. She recorded them. For the next month after our session, she followed up with me. She made me more videos when I was like, oh, this is better, but this hurts. I mean, like, it was so good. And all that for cheaper, way, way cheaper than in the US. So medical, there's actually a whole, if you're listening to this and you're someone that is concerned about medical necessity when you travel, there is a whole industry based around medical tourism. People actually travel to other countries to get their annual checkups, to get their teeth cleaned, to get surgeries, because the medical systems are actually better and they're way less expensive than in the US. I have a medication I take. If I try to fill the prescription here in the US, it's $250. If I get it in France, the same medication is $12. Wow. So, you know, I mean, and most countries have an expat hospital. Yeah. So if you need to be taken care of, you're actually probably going to go to a separate hospital. And there are medical interpreters. If you Google, like, you know, medical interpreter, you know, what language of country you're in to English, you may find somebody that would be able to help you and come to the appointment with you. So all of these resources are out there just to give your listeners some comfort.
Wow. That is awesome. I think there'd be a lot of people signing up to travel now. That's fantastic. Right. Reach out to Heather. Yeah, that's right. We'll point you in the right direction. That's for sure.
Exactly right. Yeah. Very good. Very good.
So I wanted to ask a question. So when we first kicked off the podcast, we saw an ad. One of our sponsors is Tausi, and I heard you go, "Yay, Tausi!" Yes. So have you had experience? Do you have a Tausi?
I don't have a Tausi yet. I have to talk to Janice about that. But and I think she made a travel size one, because I travel very, you know, like with very small bags. So I was really happy to hear she had a travel one. But I just think the concept is just so cool. And I have that neck issue, so having a pillow that, you know, that I can like lean back on, it's just, I think it's a genius idea. I'm so happy she made that.
Yes. Cindy doesn't travel anywhere.
I don't. I've got mine behind my low back right now.
Or do any podcasts without.
That's hers. Exactly right. Or do any office work at all without mine. Yeah. That's right. You know, and speaking of travel too, because we're going to. We have another sponsor, Mobility Towel. Yeah. And, you know, it's an adaptive towel that you can use to make yourself more independent. It's got some adaptive loops that you can use, and a weighted hem to use gravity to help dry yourself off. You know, we often think about those people that may need those few things. And I know you said that you travel really, really lightly. You know, if somebody had to take a few things, you know, for adaptation reasons, you know, is there anything that you would recommend as far as, you know, well, we've got the Delta thing going on right now with all these people not having their bags and everything else. Do you carry your stuff on usually, or do you check it, or is it just kind of a matter of where you're going and what you're doing? Or
typically, because I have like loyalty and status when I usually fly Delta. No, that's okay. You know, and I have to say, like, you know, look, this has been a tough week for everyone. And I think, you know, and what I like about Delta is they put safety first, at least from what I can see. So, you know, but that aside, I typically will check one bag just because it may be too heavy to go in the smaller roller bag I have. Because of my neck issues, like I like to lift as little as possible. So I typically check that one and then bring my backpack on board with me and just put that in the overhead. But I do bring I've in South Korea, I bought a massage gun. Which is awesome. And it's travel tiny. And of course, immigration, you know, pulls my bag over and I'm like, it looks like there's a gun in your bag. And I'm like, well, it's a massage gun. I'm like, oh, you know. So now I have like a roller, you know, you hold both sides and you just roll it. And I have those, they're like exercise bands so that, you know, if I have some body pain that acts up, I can put the band on, or if I want to just do strength training. So, you know, I definitely would put whatever you need. And remember, I'm traveling full time, which is different in that. So I'm away for, you know, months and I don't want the wait. But if you're going on a vacation for a week or two, you know, when my mom came with me, she's going to have a large bag and she's going to throw everything in there that she might possibly need because she might possibly need it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So if we have a discount code for Tausi, if anybody's interested in it, if you go to Tausi, tausibrands.com, I believe, and you use promo code, do we have the code up there? There's a discount code that says Rockets, but there's also a promo code that says Comfy for You. You can get a discount off of that.
Or just do the barcode. Or
that's right. Scan the QR code right there.
That's
exactly right. And find out more about your getting a Tausi. So let's go to our other sponsor, since you mentioned Mobility Towel.
Okay.
Let's go to our other sponsor and we'll talk about it on the other side. Maybe.
There we go.
So as you can see, you can grab the loops, and with the weights, it's going to allow that towel to stay. You don't have to grasp the towel. You don't have to grab it.
Excellent. So that was the Mobility Towel. So like Cindy was talking about with the extra large loops. I mean that, and then it's got the weights on the one end where you can actually, you know, if you don't have good grip strength or, you know, you have difficulty bending over, you could use gravity as your friend. And dry yourself off.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, everybody loves to travel. I'm excited. Now I don't know. I've got a lot of things going through my head.
I know. I do too. I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
We're going to have to figure some things out.
Yeah. So we appreciate you being here, Heather. Tell us again how people can get a hold of you and what social media handles you have.
Sure. So travellifestylecoach.com, which forwards to heatherbegins.com is my website. I'm on YouTube. My handle is Heather Markel, spelled like you can see on the screen above me. And I'm on Pinterest as Travel for Transformation. I'm on Instagram as Heather Markel. I'm on LinkedIn as Heather Markel. On Twitter, sorry, I'm the Bullbuster. That's a whole other story. So those are my, I think those are the main social
Okay.
channels. Yep.
Excellent.
All
Well,
right.
thank you so much, Heather, for
Yes.
sharing your expertise with us. It's made me look at travel a whole another way now.
Right.
And I hope the audience found it as valuable as I did. And I think you
Right.
did too, Cindy. So thank you again for your time. And you guys, we will see you in the next video, next episode.
This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.